For more on this, I'm joined by the historian Tim Snyder. He's a professor at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. He's the author of several important books, including On Freedom and On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. Professor Snyder, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. Last month, you wrote about the era of, quote, super losers. In which you said, I'm quoting from you, a super loser is a leader of great power or one-time superpower whose disastrous choices lead to a crash. He possesses a combination of skills that allow for a rise to personal power and the collapse of state power. Tell me more about this.
This is a portrait of a couple of leaders, most importantly for us, Donald Trump. He has undeniable political talent, which has allowed him to rise to the office of the presidency, but he has no sense of what the national interest, what might be, or what a country might be. And so you have a very lethal combination, a skill set that allows for power, but once in power, all he's really able to do is make the state weaker. This is something which has been observable around the world from the beginning, and I think the polling you're showing reveals that Americans are starting to see it too. All that the man brings is destruction and weakness.
I think Ruth Ben-Ghiat brought up an interesting point. We were talking about the $250 bill, which is not a legal thing. We don't have, you'd have to introduce a bill in Congress to authorize it. It would have the president's face on it, which is, again, not something that we do in America. All sorts of things are changing. And she said the interesting point about this is that in order to get some of these things done that Donald Trump is doing that are clearly not legal or outside the normal course of law, he's got to get a lot of people to prove their loyalty to him to do it. And that's part of the system that these authoritarian rulers have. They get people to break the law for them.
Yeah, this is exactly right. And this is a crucial underlying theme of, I think, of 2026. As we look towards the elections that are coming up in November, how many people will be willing to break the law for Donald Trump? And all these little examples, all these kind of embarrassing examples involving coins or writing on walls or likenesses or whatever, they're test cases of that. The big case is the military, right, where he's trying to bribe the military by giving it $500 billion so that the military will break the law for him in November. That's what this is all about. It's about building up a custom where it's normal to break the law for a person. That's what he's trying to do, but it's not going to work.
Let's talk about why it's not going to work, because it's actually fairly obvious, although you really lean into this in your writings and your social media, reminding people that what we still have in this country is agency. We still have the ability to demonstrate on many levels, including voting in primaries and voting in elections and public demonstrations and taking positions on things. But this is the moment to do it, right? You don't want to have to answer to your kids and your grandkids in 25 years when they ask you, what did you do in 2026? You don't want to say nothing.
Yeah, number one, you're absolutely right. You're always in history and your choices matter, and not making a choice to act is also a choice. Number two, this guy has weaknesses. He tries to be a fascist, but he's not strong enough. He can't win wars. He loses. He's an oligarch. That opens up huge opportunities because nobody likes somebody who takes and gives bribes and is clearly greedy. These are weaknesses that one has to exploit. One can't imagine that history is going to bring this to you. You have to take the fight to them. And the third thing is absolutely right. When there are conventional things you can do, like vote, get out the vote, do those things, but also do unconventional things. Protest, organize, make sure people around you realize this is a special moment.
Talk to me about that a little bit, and maybe through some of your personal experience. There are a lot of people who look at this and see it's wrong, and you can make comparisons to Germany in the 1930s, where freedom started to erode and things started to go wrong. But most people said, "Hey, we're pretty solid. You're not going to take a country like Germany, which is so ascendant and academically advanced and scientifically advanced and culturally advanced. He's not going to ruin it." How do regular people get involved in? How do you cross the line into unconventional things if you don't think you're a radical or an activist?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I appreciate the comparison to Germany because we, in a way, one way that it's similar that people don't think about is that Germany should have been the superpower of the 20th century, right? And apart from all the horrible things they did, they also just blew that chance. Just like with Trump, Trump is trying to blow our chance to be a power in the 21st century. But yeah, you put your finger on the key. It's not about necessarily revising who you think you are. It's about remembering who you think you are.
Right.
And then just doing some little thing with other people regularly that affirms who you are. If everybody does that, that will be enough.
You said something to me. It was right after Donald Trump's reelection last year. We were together on air, and you reminded people something changed. You didn't change. Remember who you are. And I remember that very clearly. We're still the same people that we were. Professor, stand by for a moment. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll continue this conversation on the other side. Professor, here's one of the things that you know, I don't really like spending a lot of my time talking about ballrooms and arches and reflecting pools and things like that. But there's always another story here. It's never just what you think it is. The Washington Post has written about some of these things and said that more than half of the publicly identified donors to President Donald Trump's White House ballroom project have won new or expanded federal contracts worth more than $50 billion during the past 6 months, according to a report released Thursday by a government watchdog group. This is the thing, right? It's never just what you think it is. It went from being a $400 million ballroom that neither of us were going to have anything to do with. Then it became a $1 billion boardroom that taxpayers were going to pay, but neither of us would probably ever be invited to anyway. And now it's a $50 billion transfer of wealth to companies that are involved in it. So I don't know whether it's a protection racket or it's bribery. It's something that seems less obvious, was less obvious than what it seemed like when it first was announced.
It's a laundromat. And the fact that it has this giant sign outside now, you know, makes it look like a laundromat. That's what it is. It's a laundromat. If you look at Trump's real estate career, the man didn't make money by building buildings or selling them. He did make money by having buildings and using them as laundromats, having them as places where money could go in and out, especially Russian money and money from outside the country. This is how he operates. So now he's taken our White House, the people's house, and he's turned it into his own personal laundromat where money can go in and money can go out and there's no oversight, and his personal friends profit and everyone else suffers. That's what it is. He's turning the White House into a laundromat.
What do you make, though, of people who say, well, he's not going to run for a third term, which, by the way, I never know whether that's true or not with Donald Trump, because he does talk about it from time to time, and he's got hats that are sold at the White House that say Trump 2028. But putting that aside, making the assumption that he's not going to run again, what's this for?
Well, I mean, his default, I take a different view. His default is that he's going to stay in power forever if he can. He's gonna do whatever we let him do. So the question isn't, is he going to run for a third term or is he going to be a military dictator? The question is, what are we going to let him do? Because if we let him do it, he would stay in power forever and name everything after himself and put fake gold on top of everybody. You know, like that's what he would do if we let him. So this is, I think Ruth Ben-Ghiat has it exactly right. He's trying to create the impression that he's inevitable, that there's no choice besides him. This is what this is all about. And it's up to us to create other ideas that not just for the elections in 26 and 28, but in general, better, different, more attractive ideas of what the 250th anniversary of our country means and what the future of our country could be.
And what's interesting about this is while many in the country have developed a sense of despair, you have not. You've almost taken a different view. You've taken a view of empowerment. You've decided you're going to use parts of your agency that you may not have even, you're going to use muscles you may not have used in the past and didn't know you had. And I'm seeing that increasingly with rallies, with voter registration, with turnout in primaries, with the kinds of people who are getting elected. People are reclaiming agency that was sitting dormant for a while.
Yeah, I think people are making a couple of connections. One connection is that the reason why everyday life is hard is because this government is specifically corrupt. And then once you connect rule of law and democracy on the one side to why is life hard on the other side, you realize, okay, there's a politics which makes sense, which is getting rid of the crew who are unbelievably corrupt and replacing them with people who are going to obey rules and have some kind of brighter future. But I think the second the connection people are making is, as you say, with history itself. If you think about the 250th, right, the people in 1776 were far from perfect. They were very flawed, and so are we. But they were rebels in their own time. And the only way for America to be better is for people to be rebels in their own time, right? Stealing a phrase from Frederick Douglass. You have to say, I'm involved in this. I'm a part of this. I'm a little bit of this flow, and I can make things different. And the thing is, it's catching. When you see other people do, and you find people who are better at it than you are, who are more courageous than you are, then it's catching. Then you do more, and you're more effective. But also, you feel better about yourself as a citizen, as an American, as somebody in the country.
I was discussing the fact that 18 Republicans crossed over and voted with Democrats to continue funding the fight in Ukraine. You remember when we started funding Ukraine, I think it was one Republican member of the House voted against it. It was almost unanimous. And now we're celebrating the fact that 18 Republicans crossed over to support the defense of Ukraine. This was a Republican Party priority.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good example how people will take the cult of personality, which is Trump, over the interests of the United States of America, which, just to be fair, most Republicans and most Democrats understand very similarly, along with independents,
yes,
on this issue. It's quite clear that a China-backed Russian attempt to destroy the Western order and undermine the rule of law in general is not in anybody's interest. And Republicans understand that perfectly well. So Ukraine is a test of whether people can return to thinking about the interests of the country or prefer the personal whims of someone who likes to imagine that he lives in a world of oligarchs and dictators. Trump's problem is he wants to be like Putin, but the rest of us should want to be like people who care about our own country. And I think, people have always understood that. And that's what makes Ukraine a kind of classic oligarch issue. It's about dictators who sympathize with other dictators. People generally understand that Ukrainians have the right to defend themselves and that they can and should win this war.
Professor, I have to thank you. This will be your last appearance with me on this show, but I suspect it will not be our last appearances together. But thank you for your support and your friendship of our show for the last several years. Professor Tim Snyder is a professor at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto.